So I'm going to go with the first story that came to mind. I don't know if it'll necessarily reflect across all of these, but it's memorable to me, and I think it represents something, not necessarily an epiphany, but something that made me open my eyes to another way of understanding. And I guess it goes back to one of the first refugee houses that I had been doing work on. It was in the middle of the country on the east coast of Mexico. And I was just volunteering there. I spent a couple of weeks living there with the refugees from mostly Central American countries. We were receiving about 150 to 200 a day. And I was...
Are you guys willing to be videoed?
We are, yes.
And you are?
Yes.
You're on?
And so when I was when I went into that, I went with a very structured framework of what I understood the place to be, and specifically the theoretical framework, the social, political kind of expectations of where I was, understanding on a kind of macro level why the refugee house exists, what the government has to influence in that, and how the people react to that as a society. And the more that I was getting into it, the more that I realized that it wasn't quite the way that things work when you go down to a contextual level. And I remember on one occasion that it was later in the evening, and there was a bunch of the refugees assembling, and they were getting together to wait for someone to come in and do a talk. Usually they're social workers or something of that sort, nothing really that fits out of what I had expected. And so in comes this guy in his 40s, 50s, kind of, you know, like a rugged beard and a bit of long hair, salt and pepper, and he was a bit he came in straight for it, and he puts up on the board, he starts drawing a map of the Mexican-US border. And he starts marking kilometer marks. He starts doing the geographical divisions, the mountains, the rivers, the lakes. He starts tracking the cities, and it looked basically like he was a field operator instructing I don't know what at this point. And so he has everyone looking around him, and he goes, well, you guys want to cross through the United States, right? That's what you guys want to do? Well, you guys are idiots and you're out of your mind. But you know what? It's hell through there, and if you guys want to do it, this is the only way that you're going to survive and do it. And so you have all these people gathering around him and listening to his every word, instructing in like a Rambo-like manner, this is how you're going to get to the other side successfully. And it's at that point, just in the relationship that he was sharing with the others and the way that they were embracing him, I understood for the first time that it had nothing to do with all the social implications. It had nothing to do with all the political factors. And it didn't even have to do with whether what he was saying was right or wrong. It had to do that in the moment he was able to capture them, and for the first time in a long time, take them from the peripheries of being marginalized and humanize them, make them into basic components of human emotion and soul. And from that example, I was able to understand it in a different way and give something back to the person, which is essentially the identity of that person. Give them something back that's more than just the status as a refugee or this constant state of uncertainty or insecurity. And reflecting on that, as I continue my studies, it always becomes one of my prime factors, one of my prime motivations in continuing on, and knowing that the way that I could influence these people the most is not by understanding some big overarching political theory. And it's not unnecessarily suggesting what I think is the best way to reform the system or reform them or introducing them to some kind of a workshop. It's to start at the basic function of making them human again, which I think is something that they lose along the way very early on.